what is the Enlightened Artist Creative Experience? The Enlightened Artist Creative Experience is a 14-week long course, a 14 episodes long course for those of you who are not following along with us in real time. So I will publish each episode as I work through the 14 weeks, and each episode will have a particular theme to it, and we will discuss how this theme is applicable to you as an artist and as a creative and just as a human being, how this theme affects us, and what are the ways and tricks and tips that we can use to overcome or get to know this particular theme closely as artists. And just let's get started with the course. So, a legal disclaimer right off the bat: this course is based very loosely on Julia Cameron's The Artist Way. It is a book that she had written in the late 80s, I think, based on the workshops that she conducted in the late 80s in New York and other places. And a lot of creatives from the filmmaking industry, artists and producers and directors and actors have benefited from her work and her teachings. And this course is going to be, though it is very loosely based on The Artist Way, I would strongly encourage you to go out and buy the book or borrow it from your public library if you have one accessible to you. And then you can follow along with me, going with chapter by chapter as I progress with each episode of the course. Thank you so much. So, why The Artist Way? Why this particular book as my creativity workbook? Or why do you talk about The Artist Way so much during this course? So, as I have already suggested earlier, I would recommend you to buy the Artist Way book and use it as we are going through this course. But so the writer of The Artist Way, Julia Cameron, she is a successful writer. She's written a lot of books about creativity, spirituality. These books and her workshops have influenced some of the greatest legends of filmmaking, of uh, artistry in and the people who are making some amazing things even to this day are a result of Julia Cameron's teachings. So it is my humble effort to bring her teachings to a wider variety of audience through this particular medium. And I became an award-winning poet thanks to my journaling and thanks to my experience of doing the artist way. I became an actor. I overcame the struggle of doing the auditions, going through the rounds of auditions. What is the enlightened artist about? So I am Amruta Pungshe. I call myself the enlightened artist, and I have personally done the entire Artist Way book back in 2021 when I decided to take a sabbatical from my professional job. I overcame that location hurdle and I was able to shoot in front of a TV camera and in front of a movie camera. I did a short film, I did several television serials, and I launched my own small business in a completely different field. And all of these were possible, I feel, only and only because I did the Artist Way book and I was true to the teachings of the Artist Way, and hence I call myself the enlightened artist. And since I'm the one who's doing this course, the course is called the Enlightened Artist, the Creative Experience. So, at the core of the enlightened artist creative experience is several themes that we deal with continuously as artists and as creatives in our journeys, in our life journeys. So, first of all, the very first thing that we're going to talk about maybe next week is, what are your core beliefs? What are your core beliefs, not just as a creative and as an artist, but also as a human being? The second theme that we have is, what are the fantasies or dramas that you live in or that you live with? So as creatives, we are people with abundant imagination, but that imagination sometimes also uh, shows up in our daily lives, in our real lives, and we create a lot of uh, dramas and fantasies that we live with daily. And so it talks about, what are the fantasies that you have, that you are actually living in, and what are the emotions that make you, what is your emotional map? If we were to draw out a map, or if we were to draw out a diagram, what is your emotional diagram or makeup like? And the next theme is, what are the efforts that you take and the efforts that fuel you as an artist and as a creative? So the efforts that we take to encourage our creativity, or even in cases where the artist is not completely at peace with himself or herself, what are the efforts that you are taking that are actually keeping you from living the life that you imagine yourself to live as an artist and as a creative? So the next theme that we will deal with in, I think, the sixth week is going to be, what is your creative source? Now, first week we are talking about, what are your core beliefs as an artist, and in the sixth week we are talking about or in the fifth week we are talking about, what is your creative source? What is the source of your um, creative energy? Where does it come from? Whether it rests in your religious beliefs, or whether it rests a in nature, or whether it rests in the work that you have already created in this world. Where is it? So we will talk about it, we will try to map it out, and we will try to see how we can enhance those our access to the source. And yeah, the very next week we will be talking about how to access a sense of wonder in our lives. And then in the following week we will be dealing with one of my most favorite topics when it comes to creativity and artistic expression, is you, perfection and creativity. How do you deal with perfection? How do you tackle it? Do you completely ignore it? Where does perfection lie in the grand scheme of things for you as an artist? The next week we will be dealing with a very interesting uh, topic, which is creativity and courage. Now, we don't normally associate creativity with courage in our general sense of the term, but I personally have written a lot of poetry. I have written a lot about why it is important for us as artists to tackle our fears head on and to be courageous, to build up that courage through our work and so forth. So it's going to be an interesting week, which is week 8. In week 9, we will be talking about, if not a creative, then who? And this is something that some of you all may be facing right now, that you would be in a very different job that you think does not require any creativity of any sort. And then you would have this question, or you would say to me that, oh, Amruta, but I'm not creative. I have, right? I'm getting to you. Like, you have said this to yourself, like, I'm not creative. What I do is, it can be done by anyone else. Well, can it? You have to think about that. And then the next week we will be delving on how to approach a block. Now, the last 3 weeks are really for people who are already into the journey, and for people who have accessed their inner creatives and inner artists and have been starting to produce and see the results of their work. And that is exactly where we need to believe in ourselves completely and to believe in the magic that creativity is. However, that is also when we are faced with things like an artist's block, or a writer's block, or a painter's block. And that blank page or blank canvas terrifies us. It just makes us run to the other way. Sometimes it makes us run into jobs that we really do not see ourselves doing. But then what? We will talk about that in week 10. And in week 11, we will talk about the creative industrial complex. You are an artist, you have a body of work, and now you realize that being an artist also sometimes, or most times, means being a business person. How do you get over the fact that you are producing not just for your own artistic pleasure, but also to make money and to sustain yourself through your creativity? How do you come face to face with that fact and deal with it and still go on creating despite that? In the 12th week, we will talk about the critical path. What is that momentum that you need to have in order to get out of the rat race and into the creative space, into that flow state, if you will? What is that critical mass of work that you need to have already done in order to call yourself a creative? And we are going to talk about this particular topic in multiple weeks. We are going to touch upon it, but the last week is going to be dedicated to this particular thing of how much do I need to create in order to call myself an artist. So that is going to be our 12-week themes that we are going to talk about in each week. And in the last week of the 14th, on the 14th week, we are going to talk about how do we move forward and how do we build community as artists. So before we wrap up for this episode, I would like to touch upon the biggest problem that someone could have with this particular narrative about being a creative and being an artist. There would be two, actually. So people would say that, oh, but I'm not a creative, I do not really fall into your intended audience. To which my answer is going to be that you are. And the second problem that a lot of people would be saying is that, oh, I am a creative person, I have always been a creative person since I was a kid, but I don't think I have the time to be creative. I work in a very stressful job, I have a lot of family responsibilities, so I don't really think I have the time to be creative. To which I say that you do. So for both these questions of A, I don't feel creative enough, and B, I don't feel I have the time to be creative enough, I would say that if one is that you are creative and the second is that you have the time. It's just a matter of putting that into perspective. Let me give you an example. If you have any kids around you who are under 5 years of age, or if you have ever observed young kids going about their work, you will be surprised surprised at how creative and how innovative and how curious these kids are. And why is that? Why is it a universal phenomenon, a universal experience that kids who are under 5, who are just young, who are learning about the world, are so curious, are so creative, are so innovative, and they come up with the craziest of ideas? Why is it that? The only reason that that is so is because people and kids who are under 5 have not been conditioned yet to think that they are not creative enough. Remember, like guilt, like shame, thinking that you're not creative is also an acquired emotion. It is not something that we are born with, because a 2-year old, a 3-year old, a 5-year old, most often, they will always say, when they are asked, are you creative, they would always say yes. Very emphatically, very confidently, they would say a big yes to being a creative person, a curious person. So imagine what would happen if I would give you a key that will turn into your brain and make you as curious as a 5-year-old, and with the experience that you have acquired now, with none of the baggage that repels your creativity or hides your creativity. What would that person be like? Just imagine. And if you would like to be that person, if you would like to be a person with the curiosity of a 5-year-old and the experience of the one that you are right now, then you would love to join me on this journey of the creative experience as an enlightened artist. I will see you there. Thank you so much.